Hello, everybody, and a happy Tuesday to all of you. It's time for your daily lighting critique. Okay, we've got people on the left. We're going to have some images on the right. But first, I want to start off with a question from Sooner, and the question was talking about, like, when you're lighting an animated scene, what's your approach for placing lights? We started there yesterday. I walked through an animated sequence from Spies in Disguise, but the question was still there. Like, do I animate the lights or do I keep them static? Because keeping them static, it feels like the light would get very boring and the characters wouldn't interact with them. But having them animated and moving around would actually create a more dynamic look. So I set up a scene here that kind of demonstrates the idea of what it looks like with static lights versus an animated light. So just to give you a little groundwork, so this is just a cube down the middle. I turned off so you can see through the sides. We have a sphere let me go ahead and actually turn off the IPR for now. And what the sphere is doing is just moving along. It's like a guy walking down a hallway. And my inspiration for this was actually, I've been seeing this image a lot, or images from the Joker a lot, from people submitting for the Power of Light project. So I was like, you know what? I'll simulate, like, if he's like walking through a hallway with a bunch of overhead light. So I wanted to set it up two ways. Number one was this sphere character walking through the lights being in, and right now I have two spotlights here and here, and I have another scene with a spotlight that animates with the character to kind of light them throughout. And I managed to get these rendered out before this, so I was pretty proud of that. So I want to take a look at both. So here is the light animated with the character. So as you can see, the light stays static with the character. It doesn't really move along. Sure, we're able to like identify and get like the top-down shaping and that overhead lighting that we were looking for, but this, you don't get a sense of speed, you don't get a sense of movement, you don't get a sense of any sort of dynamic capability to the shot. Now, when we look at this one, let's see, with the lights in one spot, you can now see how the character is able to walk through the light, how it's able to, you feel a sense of motion, you feel a sense of dynamicness. And while, lots of what we talk about are still images, and we can craft shaping and we can craft everything around that still image, all of that stuff translates to animated shots too. Because again, like we're just focusing on, like again, when we focus on stills, it's like that extrapolates out over an animated shot. So you still focus on the shaping, you still direct the viewer's eye. It just is more dynamic in a scene. And so by keeping the light static and allowing the character to move through, you can actually, the character's lighting actually changes versus if we were just looking at it from a static, from an animated light standpoint. Now, like if, and the biggest thing when you're doing this is just to think about like actually what would happen in the real world. That's the very first place to start. So if the light isn't moving in real life, don't move it in the scene, because you want the animation of the character to create the dynamic energy, not the animation from the light itself. So Sooner, I hope that answers your question, because I'm going to close this because, as I was saying before I got started, I have way too many things running on my computer at the moment. And so I want to make sure not to kill everything and ruin my graphics card and never be able to buy one again. Okay, so now I want to start it off with our, we have a couple animations here. So we've got Annabelle and Antonio. And then we also have this still images. So Annabelle and Antonio are not here. I want to make sure to hit the people that are in the little boxes to our left. So I'll go ahead and start with the
Actually, I am here, but
oh, hey, oh, there you are. Oh my gosh, I totally missed you. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Oh. So, yeah. So, truth be told, I was setting up that scene and didn't get as much of a chance to look through these as I wanted. I did see Forrest comment that the brick displacement is looking really good, and I couldn't agree more. I think that was like you really nailed it, and on that wall over there too. I think that looks really well.
Thanks.
And it's great to see all this played out because it's really nice to see him, similar to what we were just talking about. You've got the lights static, but because the character is so kind of bouncing around the scene, you can see how the light is really dynamic on the character. So I love how it goes from light, airy at the beginning to really sinister at the end, and you never feel like this massive jump in the space. The one thing about the end is the color of the light is a little like it's a little yellow green, which is not bad from a story point standpoint, but just because of the light sources that we're working with, like tabletop tungsten lights, those are usually going to be a little bit warmer, and it feels a little off to me that they're shifting. Like you would see more of that light color coming from the overhead fluorescent lights than you would from this light here. So that's the biggest thing in terms of the actual
Actually, for that light, I did put some warmth in it, but I think it's mostly the upper lights that are making it look more green. So I don't know if at the end should I like maybe animate them so they go warmer.
Maybe a little bit, but it's whatever this light is. Like he's because he's warm here, and as he steps into, there seems to be like maybe it is an overhead light that's coming through here. Yeah, it's that one that's kind of overpowering it. So I think whatever this light is. Actually, you're right, because I thought it was more about this. Whatever this light is, let's just warm it up a little bit. And then for this light, if it's on, I would make this whole area be brighter, glowier. You know what I mean? Like almost, yeah. Just because like whenever a light bulb is turned on and it's photographed, you really can't see.
Yeah, you can't like see the shape of it, so it would be like a little bit like
precisely.
Yeah, glowy.
But all that being said, this is a complex scene, and
she moves around so much.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
This isn't an easy scene to light because, again, like I said, it's almost like you're lighting 3 or 4 shots at once because of the different positions of the character throughout. Like,
yeah,
they're like little vignettes throughout it, and I think it's really good. Other than that, I really don't have any other notes on it. Do you guys? How about you guys? Do you guys see anything that you want to ask about, or that you think could possibly improve things?
I guess I just have a question about the noise. Annabelle, did you send this to a farm?
Because my computer isn't that well. I have a laptop, so it's not like super
Okay, so this
strong.
is your own machine then?
Yeah, that's my own machine.
So I guess my question would be then like when do you guys start using if you get this kind of noise in a larger studio, is it obviously in the glass you probably have to send this to re-render, but is there ever a point where you're just like, oh, just do denoise inside Nuke or something?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean we have the same limitations as anybody else because it's like especially coming up against the deadline of the end of the film, you're like, oh no. And I mean a lot of my life as a compositor was cleaning up noise. Like this, a lot of it is evaluating the level of noise. Like this is a lot, so I don't know if Nuke could handle this. And also a thing that we did a lot too, because increasing sample sizes, sample numbers causes render times to skyrocket. It doesn't always clean it up. So we would do tests on projects where it's like, and I've talked about this a lot, where it's like, do we increase the samples or do we double the render size and make it twice as big and then scale it down in the comp? Because that cleans up noise a lot too. And lots of times that even though you double the render size, I mean, which will quadruple the render time, it's actually a better cleanup process and less costly to your render at the end of the day than it is to increase samples. So you have that option as well.
You know that we could do that.
What's that?
I actually didn't know that we could do that, like make it bigger and it wouldn't like make it like extremely like costly for the render time.
No, it because of the math of it, it just quadruples it because it's actually the same calculations because the lighting and everything else about it is exactly the same. So only the size of it is scaling, and because you're going from like this size box to this size box, it's actually like it's four times more. If you triple it, it's actually 9 times longer. By the rule.
Because for sometimes when I would do like a higher render, I would still see some noise, like especially in the glass.
Yeah.
But I think maybe if I try that, it might help a lot.
Yeah.
Also, I had one question for the metal part on the table in the back. I see there's like a very like light that's like shining on it. I don't know if that's going to be a problem when it's going to be higher.
The desk in the background back here?
Well, the little like coffee table,
yeah.
it's the metal part. Like at the beginning, there's like a little flashing reflection. I don't know if like it's going to be a big problem when I like make it higher.
Is that in the render or is that in the comp?
That seems to be in the render.
Okay. So one of the things that I would do with that's hard. Okay. So if the reason why I just said is because it crosses over this line. One of the things that I've done in the past a lot is let's say I would take this first frame and I would literally draw a roto around it, and then let's see, let me just draw it. So it's like there's an image, you branch it off to the side, you do a frame hold, which locks it to one frame, and then you will do a roto around that, like you'd frame hold, and then you'd be like, you do an inside merge node, bring this in the side. So like you have one frame that's literally held within here, and then what you do is you'd almost 2D track it into place. Like it's actually what you're doing, like but this has like a swinging camera with parallax and some other stuff. Like if the camera was just panning, you can get away with that a lot easier. And then you would just take, and then you move this roto, and then you'd let's say you would transform this, and then put this back over top of the original. And you would do that, and that would help like lock it into place and just slide it along so it doesn't pop. But you can't really do that here because again, it crosses, like you've got this line, it crosses over things. It actually, the parallax of it changes because the camera swing. So yeah, that'll be an issue.
Could you just maybe put since that's just a reflection of the light hitting that table, could you just put like a little light blocker in front of it, make it a little translucent, and then make it so the camera can't see it, so you still get the shine but not the bouncy reflection?
Well, I noticed when I try to do that, sometimes it doesn't always work because it's like a reflection of another light. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I tried that on the door once and it didn't work out so well, but I could always give it a shot. Maybe it might work.
Yeah.
Something else that we do something else so one of the reasons why this is happening is because of the extended pixel range of an EXR file. And so if you hovered over it, you would see that the values were shifting from 1 to 8 to 4 to 3 to 7 to 9, like whatever. It's like bouncing around in that range. Another thing that we do when we see like high intensity light causing a noise like that, is I've done it too where I've rendered it out, where we like make it not an extended pixel range, so it only renders up to white to 1, and that'll actually, because and then you just isolate it just to that area, and then that area stays at 1. It's not great because it does take away we've talked about like adjusting the gamma around and the exposure around. It does clamp the value at 1. But for something small like that, you can do that too. But that would require like doing a whole other render of the background or just that table or something. For me, if it was me, I would just go into that material and rough it up a little bit and darken it so we don't get that high of a highlight.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. It seems like a simpler
just make it darker. Just make it a dark leg of a table and be the end of the day.
Okay, cool. I'll try that out.
Okay, cool. All right, let's hop over. Just because we're already in here, I just want to take a look at Antonio. So this is a much This render's looking really clean and really nice. I think the grass outside looks a lot better. I feel the extension of the world, so we don't have that cutting off as much. I almost wonder... see something. I almost want to figure out a way... So I think everything at the beginning is great. I think this is perfect. I think the movement of the light that's passing the characters is working out really well. I love that where it's like what we've talked about before, where light's kind of passing alongside of them because that's where the opening of the windows are. At the end, I love doing that. At the end, I love how the woman, the character on the left, is getting some extreme light on her face, like in some of these poses. Like it's really kind of amping up the intensity of it. But the character on the right doesn't get that as much. And so I'm wondering if maybe specifically when he leans over to the side this way, like right there, if we could figure out a way, because at this point we've kind of lost where the sun position is. I want to hit him with more light. I want him to be like, oh, like he's in a spotlight, like something's gone horribly wrong, which it has. And I think that would work out well. Looking at one last thing that I think I just saw. Nope. I was wrong. But other than that, I think this is looking really good. I would also
I have a question, Mike.
Yeah, please.
So in this type of situation, you have two characters one next to the other.
Yeah.
How would you go about directing the viewer's eye? Like, the only difference I can see is when he's holding the phone, so he has like a smaller glow on him. But otherwise, it's very like, how do you direct the viewer's eye here?
For me, I would not. I mean, my thing would have been, and you can actually. This is a really good question, and Antonio, you can choose to do this if you want. I would make the interior of the car a different color. I would make it like a gray or a darker interior, and allow their value to pop off from that a little bit, because both of them, like he is, surrounded by this. She's got the headrest around her. They're very the tone of the like the beige interior is similar to that, and so I would adjust that and maybe even just make it a little bit darker and allow their values to pop off a little bit more. Also, yeah, like Antonio's doing a good job of like depth of field helps with this a lot in this particular shot. To keep our focus in on them. But for her, yeah, it's a little trickier. I would adjust the background behind her. I would adjust the interior of the car so that it was a little bit darker and a little bit off skin color for her. But there are definitely times when because of the setup, you don't have as many options. But again, like you try and get value differences, you try and get hue differences, you try and get depth of field, blur, focus, detail, whatever you can out of it. Like her blue eyes kind of pop to me a little bit more. I would also maybe, even with that visor down, I would try and maybe creep a little bit more of the light that's hitting her side here, and maybe try and creep that around a little bit more on her face. But I think it's okay, because I think the thing too is figuring out which one of these two characters you want to focus in on. And at this point in the shot, he's the one talking. Also, watch for the pop on his eyes in the first frame. Kind of a dumb one. But, like, so he's the one delivering dialogue here, so you actually kind of want to look at him, so it's okay that she fades back a little bit. And it's more like in this last one, you kind of want to see, because she doesn't really say anything until the very end. Yeah. This is looking great. This is cool. Any other notes before we move on to the stills? All right, let's work back to front today. All right. Kat, are you here? Yes. Hi, Kat, again.
If I can ask just to be first, because I need to leave in a little bit.
You selfish. You started the alphabet, people. I swear. It's all about you. Of course, Andre. Okay, so I really, really, really like what's going on with her hair. I think that improvement is... Actually, let me just pull these together. I think... yeah, like that is a big... Like she's now she's really starting to feel into the space. I love what we're seeing around the sides of her. I just want to wrap the light on her torso a little bit more around, just like a touch more around her, so it's not quite as much. Like I think we can get away with just pulling it a little bit more around her. Other than that, I think it's really good. And then I would brighten her eyes overall a little bit.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything for this? Because I think this looks good. Let's see if this works. It makes them a little bit, these are a little bit glowy. But I think having just that like little bit of extra value in the eyes kind of like really allows us to zero in on them. So I want, because like everything else in the scene is very saturated, and having this like white element right in the middle really allows us to zero in on them.
Cool.
Yeah, it's looking great overall. And then, oh, you know what? One more thing. And just because this is like this is just a thing that happens with this environment. For whatever reason, this wall, and this wall always end up kind of tonality wise the same. And I always think it looks a lot better if you can take this wall in here and just darken it down a little bit. I don't know why that's my default when I accidentally start drawing a Bezier, and but like, yeah, but something like this. Like just to kind of create a little more separation, more depth along that side, it really helps. But yeah, other than that, I think it's looking really good.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So, all right, we're already back. We're here. All right, Kat. That's a huge one. I saw your message this morning that the animator liked it a lot. That's great. I think I agree. I think it's working really well. I think the tones and the values and everything are starting to play in. Are starting to work together really well. The two, I think we could. I think we can still go back to being a little bit darker in the deep recesses of this room. I like this value in the middle here, but I kind of want to see that go back to being a little bit darker. And then the other big things I really want to play up is the light that's on the character here. It feels more frontal than underneath. I think we can play up the underneath angle. I think we can position it underneath him a little bit more strongly, and get a little, because right now it feels a little bit frontal as opposed to like this.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't rendered that view before. When I did the render, I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool, because he looks like super menacing right there.
But that is something I should say, is that one of the things that's working really well is the hyper focus on the eye. Like getting that where there's like a bounce up underneath it, but it's just like we just want to see some shadows up above. And like have there to be shaping on the eye where it's like more lit from underneath, but having this general facial focus where like this part of the face is going darker is really good. Your animator's got some tie penetration there. That's okay.
Yeah, I saw. I'm sure he noticed, but I'm not going to try to tweak it because I don't want to move things.
Yeah. And then like watch out for some of the things we may have to. When like again, we'll see how this plays out in motion. But just like in a still, this image, that little sliver on his chin is a little bit strong. But yeah, I do love. I love the focus on the eye there at the end.
Okay.
This is coming together well. This light looks good.
I might actually. Cool. I think I'm gonna render out the animation this week and just see what it looks like when he's moving,
Totally.
so I can kind of get a better feel of what to tweak
Totally.
overall.
There.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So.
Yeah. There's yeah, because you'd be surprised at like what I do this all the time. I'm like, oh, this looks so good and it's still, and I feel super confident about it, and I go home, I send it to the render farm overnight, and I'm gonna go back and take a look at it the next day, and I'm like, I'm gonna feel good about this, and then it just hoses me. Like I come back the next day and I'm like, oh, like there'll be some weird shadow between point A and point B that I never thought about, or like I don't know. There'll be
You didn't see because it wasn't moving.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the other thing, this light looks good. I think you can go a little bit brighter with it.
Okay.
More than that. Kind of what we were talking about with Annabelle's. Just that, like, you don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So you kind of seen that, just the edge of the light a little bit too strongly. Yeah.
Ooh.
Great job. All right. So next up in our reverse order, let me just go ahead and close these. All right. So next up, Mindy not here, Justin not here, Dani, you are here in an unknown location. Okay. So start with the night one. I think it's looking good. We're back to this, but just a little bit more warmth in them swords, just because they're so different. But I think everything else is looking good. Do you guys have anything with this that's standing out to you? Anything you have questions about? But I think this night version is good. I would maybe take one pass. The one thing is, I'm looking at it now as a whole, it does, and again, just kind of the nature of what it is, it does feel a little matte. Like I would like to see maybe a little bit of, it's like almost just like a little bit of specularity in the brick, like there's some moisture in the air, or maybe a little bit on the books to feel like there's like gold on the text or something. So if it was me, as one more thing, I would render, like make everything metal in the scene, render it as a pass, and then maybe try and paint that stuff in. Oh, I'm angered Dani, he left. He's like, you SOB, you never said that before. This is ridiculous. Why didn't you give me that note a week ago? I've had all of those feelings too, guys. I get it. But I like that would be the one thing I would give a shot at it. And then for the daytime one, the angle's looking better. The overall feel is good. But now the bounce in here feels artificially strong. So I pull back on that. And then now that we've got that in place, I do want to add in, it would be like an area light up top here. That's almost like, it's shining kind of downward, because it's almost like the next level of the bounces, because I think that, and this is more about adding a little bit of ambient value. It's a lot of, because like some of these shadows are now getting very dark, and just kind of filling those in a little bit. And it's like, because we've got the key light coming in, let's say that's an intensity of 1, then you get a bounce light coming in, which is a reduced value, let's say that's 0.7, and now we've got a third value coming down from the top, which would be like a 0.35. So it'd be more like the way that the light kind of dissipates and reduces as we go along. Yeah. Outside here looks good. I would also, just from a shader standpoint, I would just darken the back of this. Just because it's the back of a fireplace, it gets covered in soot and black and whatever that stuff is. And it just feels a little too clean back there. All right. I'm sorry I angered you to the point where you left. That's on me. All right, next up. Brenda, no. We've got the Ashleys. Oh, this is another, that's somebody, that's Trent's. Okay, so we'll start with Ashley G. This is cool. So look, like, so one of the things that I'm gathering from your reference is just like this airy, light, very bright kind of a still life going down. And I think that you're well on your way there, because like so much of when you're first starting lighting for like in any sort of CG stuff, high contrast just kind of happens to come out. But like I'm really starting to feel like the light kind of bouncing around a little bit, and I think that's good. I do like I'm looking at the plants to start. So like they've got like kind of a nice rich yellow green texture. You can see some translucency through this one. I think this is getting a little bit too much on the blue side. I think we're kind of moving towards the blue greens, and I want to pull it back into the yellow green realm. This plant looks really good in terms of the shaping, but these in here, we're kind of losing the light passing through them. It looks like it just kind of hits right here and then stops. So I want to start to feel some of that subsurface through it. And additionally, and we've talked about this, is that, and it looks good here. I think we can get some more broad specularity on the plant. Like again, this leaf is looking good, but these, especially like in this region here, we're not really picking up anything. And again, they're filled, like they're not getting direct key light, but I do think that they would pick up some lighter elements around the room. In terms of like the coffee, the table, I'm calling that wicker. I don't know if that's exactly wicker, but like this, I think could fall more into this color palette as well. A little bit more richness in the warmths. I think so. Like some of this is about bringing out not only the color of the plant, but like really kind of getting that warm value in the wicker and in the tabletop as well. And then that additional warmth, we'll start to feel it when we're bouncing up into the elements that are white, like the coffee cups and the skull. For outside the window, let's see, I think we can go brighter out there. Like we want that to be like a brighter, glowier element in this, and then we can leave the darker areas for the foreground, and that would really kind of help do a push-pull a little bit, where it'll push back the background and allow the darker elements to come forward in the foreground. I just realized that with my camera, I'm saying this is background and this is foreground. I should probably do it that way, like push it towards the foreground and then away from the background. One minor thing is I would check the scale of the coffee cups next to the books, because 1984, I don't know what like. I guess it's because like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1984, like I have those books and they're smaller, like they feel small to me, and then the coffee cup, like it just makes the coffee cup feel like an espresso cup, and then next to the skull, I would just check the scale, double check the scale on those. Do you have any questions? Like this like from a starting point, this is looking really good.
Question, thank you.
Yeah, but I'm like one of the big things that I'm feeling is like I believe that the light is coming in through the window, right? Which is a big part of this. Like I believe that it's like, and I believe that it's a relatively big light source, which is the light coming in through the window, because it's just like the overall softness of it, the overall bounce of it is feeling right. It's just about getting some colors in there and like really kind of amping up the warmth of it a little bit. That's good. All right. Ashley B. The light coming around her face, there's a little bit more light on her face, right? I think it looks a lot better.
Yeah, like I took up the key light just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not like too much, but just a tad.
You did the right amount. I think that works really well. I'm wondering. I'm just looking at this now, thinking if there's any, and I like the extra haze on the guardrail. That helps too. Because right now I'm just like thinking about ways of improving it, and there is, I'm looking at the connection between her feet and the water, And I'm wondering if there's something that we can do to make her feel like she's in the water a little more. Right now it feels like she's a little bit on top of it. And it would just, maybe it's just like, because I guess it's kind of, I'd have to look at reference. Because like it's just like on this side, it just feels like there's a line between the two. And it almost feels like the water would kind of like curve up. And it's totally dumb and totally minor. But it's just like, it's just something that I was just thinking about. Like, of trying to figure, maybe it's like when that happens, there's a little liner. I don't know. I'd have to look at some reference. But honestly, I think this is looking really good. Does anyone else who's logged in today, anybody else got anything? Because I really don't.
The only thing, and maybe it's just because the light on that side got brighter, but the bottom half of her shirt, it looks a bit more slick like her pants versus the top half. I don't know if it's just, that's how the light's hitting the rainfall.
Like right
And
there?
you're just getting kind of weird. Yeah, you're getting the reflection from the water.
Yeah.
Whatever you're using to make the rain. Because that just, it's like the materials look different. Other than that, but that's like kind of what stood out to me because it looks slick. It might just be the way that the light's hitting the rain, whatever you're using to create the rain.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if
Other
it's
than
the
that,
rain
that's the
around
only
her
thing
shirt. I actually don't know. So I think that's a good note. And then, and the other one too is this specular highlight that's coming down her cheek right there. I really like what we're seeing on her jaw, and I like what we're seeing here. This feels a little bit bright, and like you don't really see one. You don't usually see it coming across there because that would imply like there's a little bit of a crease there. So I would see what I could do about softening that and toning that down a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it's a really good job. All right. We will. Is anybody else who is online now? Anybody else with a submission that we want to take a look at before I hop into to everyone else? Okay. This was from Trent, who is helping us get a possible rig on Ashley, if we can. So I wanted to take a look at his too. So I think this is really cool. I think that you're definitely like feeling her in this pose is really nice. I like the glowy elements of her feet. The two things that I would really do, and one of them Jordan recommended, would be vignetting it down a little bit and allowing these edges, especially these three. It's fine over here, but like the area around here to go a little bit darker. Number two is I would tone down her fill value on this side and really play up her connection to this light. And then number three is I feel like she's sitting in some sort of like flying pod, but I don't feel like there's a window here. I would see like maybe a little bit more reflection in here. And that would be about it. Yeah, because I think the glowing bits look good. I would maybe take down this bright rim, just because like I don't fully see the motivation for it. But I would just take that down, and really it would just be a matter of playing up this light here as the main light source. All right. And then next up we have Brenda. Brenda, I think this looks great. I really don't have any other notes on this one. Again, this is my thing that I do where I make people wait a long time just to tell them it's good. But yeah, I think you've kind of nailed this one, and I think it looks great. So really, really good job with that. Justin, so we've got our Peaky Blinders reference. I wonder. Oh. I want to see a little more contrast. The ear looks better. I think it's in his hair. I want to see, because like I'm seeing some darker values up in here, and I want some darker values in through his hair, and a little bit more warmth in his skin. And if you want, I would just to kind of get it to match up, I would perhaps change make his jacket darker and bluer like this, and that way allow his skin tone to kind of pop out, because having that be a little bit warmer kind of changes the composition a little bit. Just kind of get those to match up a little bit. But yeah, other than that, I think it's looking good. Let's see.
The ear's a little plasticky.
Yeah.
Because like the skin shader on his face is really good, and then the ear looks a little plasticky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think it's just a matter of like diffusing or roughing up the specular highlight a little bit. I think that'll help. All right. And Mindy, this one's looking cool. So great reference. This is possibly Park Slope too. Yeah, there's a lot of these brownstones in my neighborhood, so this feels familiar to me. And I love like the dappling of the light and the shadow and everything, like passing through the trees. I think that works really well. I think that you're getting that, but I do think that the key light area can go brighter, and a little bit warmer overall in the background. So I think it's like if we're playing up this like warm sunny day, I think we can hit that a little harder. And then in terms of the character and her lighting, I'm looking at like this woman here in the bottom right, and just like the specularity across her face and across her torso, and it feels a little bit. I feel like I'm just picking up more detail on her skin and everything than in here. So I feel like almost like the specularity needs to be a little bit tighter. But I love the overall shaping, and I do think that there's an opportunity here because of the dapple that we've introduced in the set, that you can actually add a little bit of shadow down here on her and really keep our focus up top, because there's a lot of shadow from leaves on everything, and I would work that into the character lighting as well. Might just be low res. She feels a little out of focus to me too. I don't know what that is. I guess it's just low resolution. Yeah, and I think like looking at in the shadows back here, I think the fill value can come up a little bit, because like the shadows aren't quite that dense in some of these areas. Like if you look at this versus like this, you'll see a lot more value in the shadows coming through. So with the background, it's about just like pulling up the exposure overall. All right, Saumik. So we've got your reference here. I think that the contrast is a little high. I think that in this one, the key value is not as high as this, and I think the shadow is like this is not quite as low as this. So I think we can play that up a little bit. I'm sorry, play it down a little bit where we're bringing down the contrast overall. So lowering the key light, lifting this. From a saturation standpoint, this whole scene is much less saturated than this. But you can play that up as you see fit. You can choose to follow that or not. Because I think that this character in his hero form tends to be a little bit more saturated overall. And then looking at him, like one of the things again about the skin is like you can start to see some specularity on the tip of the nose, on the lips, a little bit around here. It would be great to get a little bit more of that specularity on this character as well. And then yeah, we'll go from there. Will. So we've got your reference here, and the first one, and and your render here as well. So I think that the biggest thing is just there's like an overall softness on this, a little bit of diffusion you can add in. I think your color palette is spot on. I like these blues. I think this coolness is working well. I think the warmth against it is looking well as well. I think the boxes and the books in here are a little bit bright. I think you can kind of tone them down to be more along the level of this stuff, and just because that would just really keep it in here and allow that stuff to kind of fade down a little bit. Let's look at this real quick. I'm looking at the curtains. I think the curtains could use actually they're fine. I was gonna say a little bit of specularity in them too, to kind of match this, but I think they're fine. I think the shaping of this is just a little bit, like the shape of the curtain itself is just a little bit more, a little bit harsher. But yeah, overall this is looking great. Really good job. And then last up we have Jenn. So yeah, this is coming together well. I just think that, you know, if whatever we can do to break up the uniformity on the ground and the grass. I think the girl looks good. I still think maybe just a touch less orange saturation on her face. And that's about it. I'm gonna open it up one last time. Does anybody, you guys see anything on this? That maybe like also this little bit that's hanging down off the mushroom. It almost feels like it doesn't have a shader on it or doesn't have a color on it. I would have it match the rest of the mushroom color. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is looking good.
Is with the grass, I don't know if that's just the shape, the material, it just looks very straight.
Yeah,
like very grid-like, but there's not a lot of randomness to it.
Yeah, I think it's actually like generated. I think it's like NGen or like whatever that, like the third generation stuff. So I think it's just a matter of like adjusting that. I don't want to give too many notes on it because I don't really know how to do it.
Randomizing it.
XGen, that's what's called. So I think because like you can start to see it, especially like in this area here. It starts to feel like a pattern. Like it feels like it feels like a, it feels like it's stamped in Photoshop.
Right.
I mean, like you could potentially.
I'm sure there's a way to randomize it somehow, but yeah.
But like I don't know what it is. Like I mean, you could just. Oh. Why is this being done? You could just like randomize it, like that a little bit more. I'm doing a super janky job of this, but like, I don't know. There are ways again, because this is a still where you could make that. I don't know. You could play around with that and make that a little bit different too. But depending on what your comfort level is with this stuff. All right, cool. Well, good job today, everybody. This was a lot of fun. Any questions? Anything before we break for the day? Kept it under an hour. Good job, everybody. All right. Good job. I will talk to you all very soon. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.